Forum for Media Development. I don't make this an ad, but just so you know what it is a network of almost 200 now groups, both national, regional, and international, that work on journalism training, media law reform, sustainability for independent journalism, and increasingly on public access to information, which is the ultimate point of journalism, after all, is to have the public be well informed. If we could advance the slide. Goal 16, as you know, incorporates 10 different elements in the overall goal of promoting just, peaceful, and inclusive societies. We at JFMD have concentrated specifically on getting incorporated into the SDGs and now on the implementation of Target 1610. Now, even though this is just the 10th of 10 targets and the 16th of 17 goals, we strongly believe that this target is essential to realizing all of the 17 goals and all of the 169 targets, for the obvious reason that unless we are informed about what is happening in each of these development areas, there is no way for us to know if we are in fact progressing, and there's no way to achieve these goals. Now, the official indicators that the UN is using to monitor progress really cover both halves of what is a binary target, which is interlocking. The first target is to ensure public access to information, and the second part of the target is to protect fundamental freedoms, which of course includes freedom of the press and freedom of speech generally, without which you cannot really have public access to information. The specific indicators include the passage and implementation, keyword, of access to information laws, and on a kind of more sober note, on the press freedom side, tracking the murders, the deliberate killings of journalists and other attacks on free media, which are, of course, if you will, a negatively correlated indicator of progress towards this goal. There has been tremendous progress on the first component of this, which is access to information as a legal obligation of governments. So as recently as 1990, you only had about a dozen countries in the world that actually had access to information laws on the books, which is to say that gave citizens the right to demand of their governments to give to them whatever information they had on whatever topic, barring things that are sensitive for either personal privacy reasons or legitimate national security reasons. But as 10 years went by 2000, there were 40 such countries with these statutes. And today, that number has more than tripled. Right now, today, there are more than 120 of the 193 UN member states that have access to information laws on the book, as you can see in this slide here, prepared by our friends at Article 19, which is to say the vast majority, 90% of the people in the world now, live in countries where this is a legally recognized right, and there are mechanisms, including online mechanisms, for you to get this information. This is historic. This is transformational. But this is, of course, only part of the picture. It's only the beginning, because a law is a law. Now, interestingly, the best laws in the world today you would not find in the older established democracies like this one where we are today. I happen to be American. We're in the United States, where there was a law passed in 1966, which was one of the first. And there are older laws that are even older in Sweden, and in laws that are on the books for a long time in Canada and a number of countries in Europe. But the best laws in the world really tend to be the newest laws. So the models are found in the countries of the South, in Mexico, and Brazil, and Afghanistan, and South Africa, and others. And this is an interesting change, if you will, in the paradigm for looking at improvements in democratic governance. And the reason it's not just that those laws are good. In many, if not most of those countries with these new laws, these laws are actually being used by journalists and civil society on a daily basis in order to advance things in the public interest. And so what GFMD has been doing is to try to monitor the actual implementation of these laws independently. Because look, if you have a UN indicator and nation states report to the UN, yes, we have a law, well, that's fine. That's a matter of public record. And yes, we're implementing it. Well, should we take their word for it? Not really, not exclusively. You have to have the independent accounting of the professional independent users of these mechanisms. So we have at GFMD, we've conducted voluntary reviews with journalists and civil society groups in about 20 or 30 countries now around the world in the past 2 years or so, and these are still going on. Countries that are very, very different, one from the other: Pakistan, Tanzania, Serbia, Mongolia, Indonesia, Paraguay, a number of other countries in Latin America as well. And we believe that these reports are not competitive with what the countries say, because they do have official data and the rest of it, but they are complementary. And often they show in many, many countries that either these laws are new on the books and they have not yet been implemented well, or, if we could go stay on that Article 19 slide, please, or they have not yet really confronted the most difficult issues for political systems. For example, I just participated in a review in Serbia, which the Serbian law is one of the best in the world when it was adopted, but in a very thorough, well-documented review by civil society groups and journalism organizations in Serbia, it showed that the current level of enforcement by the current government is not nearly what it was when the law was new, so it's going backwards. So one of the great advantages, in our view, of this annual reporting system on the SDGs is that it allows these continual report cards. So it should be a brake on governments that would be tending otherwise to go backwards, to either stop implementing existing laws or even to revoke existing laws. So it's not just an impetus to have new laws on the books, but it's a kind of insurance policy, one hopes, against going backwards. Now, the corollary for this to work is press freedom. So one of the indicators, as I said, is the number of journalists that are killed every year. CPJ is an organization which tallies these things very correctly, and really, if you will, the key number there of the 54 journalists who were confirmed killed in the line of duty because of their work last year is the 34 who have been murdered. And those are deliberate killings, and it is obviously impossible for the UN to track these killings by taking only the words of the governments alone, especially because we have many, many countries where government officials themselves have been implicated on many levels in these deaths. And that includes Mexico, Serbia, Malta, Russia, the Gambia, Syria, and many others, unfortunately, that we could name. So both these things have to come together. We need progress on both, but if we can get this right, all of the SDGs will be attainable in the long term because people will know about them. They'll demand that the governments are accountable. If we don't get this bit of it right, however, the SDGs will not only not be achieved, a decade from now, people will barely even remember what they were. Thank you.